2.
My teen years and war. The pictures on the blackboard were different on Monday, December the 8th, 1941. The day before began as many other nice winter mornings on our farm in Wilson County. But with the arrival of my older brother Vernie and his radio, the whole world changed. Our family was very poor and we had never owned a radio that I could remember. The occasion that prompted Vernie to bring his battery powered radio home with him this particular Sunday morning was the bombing of Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. Although I saw the quiet change that appeared in my parents and older brothers, it was not until the pictures on the blackboard changed completely that I began to understand how much our quiet lives would be affected by this happening half a world away. Until this time, my only knowledge of Japan consisted of the colorful pictures in my geography book of Mount Fujiyama and the green of the rice paddies. I'd always wanted to travel to this beautiful country and see all these places for myself. Not since that day in 1941 have I had any desire to see Japan. During free time at our one-room country school on Monday, December the 8th, the pictures the younger boys usually fill the blackboards with, the calm farm scenes of barns and silos and cows and horses and men plowing, changed. Maybe it was because they were boys and boys grew into men who fight wars that the pictures were now of boats and bombers and other aircraft with American flags or the rising sun planted on their sides. The bombs were falling and the anti-aircraft guns filled the air with tracer bullets. I finally had to admit the world was at war and we were part of it. The war that was already raging in Europe had seemed very distant to me before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Our neighborhood that had been top-heavy with boys suddenly seemed empty. The Forsytes, 5 sons, all gone. The Daniels, 2 of their 3 sons, gone. The Troutmans, 2 of their 4 sons, gone. My brother Lester, gone. The main interest of the now turned to the mailboxes standing in rows along the country roads. Oh, the happiness on the day that airmail letters trimmed with faint red markings appeared. Even though many arrived with words neatly clipped out, the word censorship was introduced into my vocabulary. What a joy when one of these handsome young men dressed in his neat, clean blue or khaki uniform came home for a few days. The quiet that followed as they shipped out, not to be seen for months or years, or as with some, ever again. Yes, there were a few of those black etched telegrams that began, "We regret to inform you." It's hard to explain the love and closeness the families felt for one another at those times. The following spring, I graduated from the 8th grade and began walking the 3 miles into town to attend high school. The birth of daylight saving time saw my brother Ed and me off to school in dark morning hours. In 1980, young people canvassed their towns to sell ads for the annual or encourage people to get out and vote. We high schoolers in the early 1940s canvassed the town to sell war bonds, savings stamps, and to collect scrap iron. Oh, how happy was the day your class collected more than other classes. Almost every home we visited had a flag flying and a star trimmed in blue in the window, telling the world they had a son or sometimes a daughter in the service of their country. I can still see them in my mind's eye today. My folks always raised a large garden to feed our own family. Now the garden grew even bigger as the products were shipped off by the cratefuls to feed servicemen and the factory workers. Another of the small changes I noticed was the hobos quit coming. Because we lived along a highway, all during the Depression years, we could expect 1 or 2 hobos a month to stop by for a bite of food or a bath and a shave. My folks never turned these people away, and the kitchen door was left unlocked. I remember at least one time when we arose in the morning to find someone had eaten leftovers at the kitchen table during the night. Now there weren't enough men to handle all the jobs, and many mothers went to work away from home for the first time. Everyone planted victory gardens, even the smallest of city yards. It was one of the answers to some of the shortages facing our country and was a patriotic thing to do. Rationing became a part of everyone's life. The ration card was carefully guarded necessity. Sugar and shoes and gas were the biggest ones. We kids had never owned more than one pair of shoes at a time, so shoe rationing did not affect us much. Our family used sorghum and honey for much sweetening, so even the scarcity of sugar wasn't so bad. We had never owned a car, but now Daddy felt it was important, and so 1937 Plymouth was purchased. Black, of course. Also, the war had brought an end to the Depression, and our family could finally afford a car. Because of gas rationing, it wasn't used as much as people use their cars today. On Saturday afternoon, the whole family piled in and went to town. We kids would go to the movies while Mother and Daddy shopped and discussed MacArthur and Eisenhower with the neighbors and acquaintances. I might say at this time that a movie cost 10 cents, and there was always a double feature plus a cereal on Saturday afternoon. You never had to worry if the movie would be fit to see, as all movies were fit for anyone of any age to see. My brother Ed, who was a year ahead of me in school, was allowed to take the car to basketball games and other school programs. And as we grew older, a group of neighborhood kids would load up and go into town to a movie or a dance almost every week. I was thoroughly warned not to dance with soldiers, sailors, or Marines unless I knew them. Even my brother had to give his approval. I might say at this time that they came up from Independence in Coffeyville to Neodesha to dance. That's how. So they were strangers, most of them were. Sometimes we couldn't pool enough money for everyone to go to the show or the dance, and we just sat in Wilson's drugstore and sipped nickel cokes or walked to the river bridge to watch the water flow under our feet. It was great fun, and we never knew we were missing any of the more worldly things that kids think they need in order to have a good time today. It was enough to just be young and to be together. We also would go to the country schools and play on the playgrounds. I could almost count my complete wardrobe on one hand and certainly on two. I remember to this day all my special dresses, as they were so few. Mother made my formal in my junior year, and I wore it my senior year also. It was blue taffeta with an overlay of net. I still have some of the flowers she made for me to wear on it. I also might say that during my senior year in high school, my mother passed away. And even after I was grown and married, I kept that dress. Flour and sugar and cow feed came in figured cotton sacks, and many of my dirndl skirts and blouses were made from these. Many items were scarce, and material was valuable. Also, every girl set her hair in pin curls, and bobby pins were as cherished as gold. When there weren't enough to set my hair, I used toothpicks. Want to see how I did that? You pulled some hair up, you wound it around your finger, made a little thing and stuck a toothpick through it. Just the way we did. Elastic was another item not available, and my mother made my panties with a yoke in front and fastened them on the side with hooks and eyes, if I was lucky. If not, she used buttons. She made some of my bras, which wasn't easy as I wore a size. Well, Oh, how I hated my figure, which had popped out in all directions between August and December, the year I was 14. To this day, I choose 1/2 stick of gum because during the war years, we could seldom buy any, and we made it last as long as possible. My junior or senior year in high school, the local store received a small supply of bubble gum. Joy of joys. It was such a big deal that our superintendent, who was also our history teacher, Mr. Folks, not only allowed us to chew some in his American history class, but he even chewed some right in the middle of showing off his biggest bubble. I can remember this yet. In walked the state superintendent. There was such silence, but even he understood, I think. Bananas were one of my favorite foods, and by the end of the war in August 1945, I began watching for them in the stores. Finally, in the summer of 1946, they arrived, and one day in Shue, I bought 3 pounds, ate every one of them, and I was very sick. My brother Ed and my favorite boyfriend both graduated in May 1945 and left immediately for the Army. Soon after, in 1945, the war ended, but it took a year or two for the neighborhood boys to return home, and by then I had graduated from high school, got my first job in the telephone office, and found the tall, dark, handsome guy who was to become my husband before the year was over. At the time I wrote this, we celebrated our 34th wedding anniversary on the 20th of this month, November of 1980. Now it's 2008, and we're fighting a different kind of war. My handsome husband has gone to a better place. Our children are grown, and his grandchildren, my friends and I see in uniform. May God bless and keep them safe. On June the 4th, 1970, my son Russell was killed in Cambodia during the Vietnam War. That's it.